I want to understand how many of you over here, with a quick show of hands, are from service industry or have been in service industry. Wow, that's a lot of folks. Great. Is there anybody that's in leadership position in a startup at this moment? Awesome. Okay. So, मैंने क्या किया है, right? Or what do I do? So, this journey of over the last, I think now it's going to be 1.5 years that I shifted my career into product environment, into a fast-paced startup. But prior to that, I was associated or I was working for a hardcore service industry. It's called OnProcess. Recently, it's been taken over by Accenture. You guys may recognize it. But the thing is this, over a period of time, right, 8 साल मेरे बहुत सही चले service में, and I was having the time of my life. I worked across, different departments, and then every 2 years I was getting a promotion. So my life was set. But then I realized something. When you look out at the world, right, I realized that the world is rapidly moving towards productization, right? What do I mean by that? Whatever you see at this moment, even something which was like core service at a certain point in time, that is now also getting into productization. So some of the great examples that we have is Practo, Urban Clap. मतलब आपके घर पे अभी बाई भी आ जाएगी Urban Clap से, right? So with that sort of mindset, I thought, okay, maybe it's a great time for me to try and think of, this seems very interesting, so let me try and use my experience that I have had in service and move to my next stage. So the mindset that I took when I came from service to product was something sort of this. This is what I had thought. कि मुझे तो सब आता है, 8 साल में मैंने बहुत कुछ सीख लिया, मैं 4 डालूंगी स्टार्टअप में जाके, एक्सेंचर से शिपमेंट्स में आके मुझे बहुत कुछ आ जाएगा, आई थिंक आई नो एवरीथिंग. बट गेस व्हाट, सो because you guys are going into that zone जहाँ पे you folks might be getting a little bit hungry and all, and then I see a lot of folks standing at the moment, so a lot of gratitude that you guys are standing and listening. So I do want to let you know कि मैंने अब तक क्या उखाड़ा है जो आपको मेरी बात सुन लेनी चाहिए next 10 minutes तक. So basically the things that I have been involved in between my service and in my current startup experience is product learning experience. Starting from corporate training to managing entire end-to-end training teams, then driving product and process implementation, project management if there's any project manager in the house, customer success. I was former head of customer success at Shipments, and then value realization of product, designing customer experience journey, onboarding to retention. So basically, I like to think of myself as a curator of customer experiences, right? So, like I was saying, right, मैं आई ऐसा सोच के कि मेरे को सब आता है, सर्विस ने मेरे को सब सिखा दिया. But this is how what I felt when I entered, right? And the whole reason why I'm here today is so that anybody that's thinking of jumping into that wagon, fast moving productization wagon, so that आपकी हालत मेरे तरह नहीं हो, I want to help you understand what are the things that you can potentially bring from your service experience, and at the same time what are the things that I had to quickly unlearn. So we want to start by the unlearning bit, because guys, everybody talks about learning, right? Today, all of the tracks that you're listening to, there's so much tech going on, and there's so many interesting things going on. A lot of folks are talking about what you can learn, what you can do. But I think so many years have taught me that as much as learning is important, unlearning is equally important. The pace at which you learn, the similar pace has to be put into your unlearning as well. Especially so when you are going into a startup environment, right? So the first and foremost thing that I had to unlearn, and thanks to my friend Shubham and colleague, my friend and colleague standing right there, जिसके साथ हर रोज मेरा झगड़ा होता है ऑफिस में, is moving from output to outcome thinking. So output versus outcome thinking. What does this mean? When you are a part of really big organization, right? You are thinking of departments. You are thinking of job responsibilities. You are thinking of मुझे कितना करना है, मुझे क्या करना है. भाई की तरह मैं भी सोचती थी इतने पैसे में मैं इतना ही काम करेगी, right? And then when I started coming over here, अरे मेरी job responsibility क्या है? But that's not what you can do. When you are in a startup, right, you have a small team. We all understand that. You have a really small team. And think of it this way. Large organizations usually have a lot of things going on already. But startups में जब आपकी छोटी teams होती है, your core focus goes into end goal कितना आया है, right? So what is it that you really want to do? आपको क्या करना है actually? You basically should be unlearning only to focus on the quantity of work that you are producing, which was the first very big mistake that I was constantly making, that I am putting in so many hours. यार मेरा weekend तो चला ही गया, सर्विस में क्या मस्त था, सैटरडे संडे मिलता था, यहाँ पे सैटरडे सवेरे बॉस कॉल करके बोलता है एक क्लाइंट आ गया, उसके कॉल में जाना है आपको, राइट? So these things would constantly play in my mind that okay, I think I'm giving up on some hours of whatever I used to get. But the matter of fact is, I really wasn't, right? So that sense of flexibility in your head, I'm not saying that you mess up your work-life balance and things like that, because honestly, I'm a very big advocate of your own space and all. But let's say if there are some hours in a certain week which you are freeing up by not doing a lot or it's light, I think you can think about making up for those during such key moments or key emergency moments that you have. Like, think of what is happening right now. Instead of shutting off yourself completely to that, what are we going to think about then? If we are unlearning to focus on just the quantity of work, what we want to really adopt is evaluate if your effort actually helped meet the goal or not, right? आपने 16 घंटे काम कर लिए, गोल था कस्टमर का प्रोसेस इम्प्लीमेंट करवाना, जो अभी तक हुआ नहीं है, सॉफ्टवेयर का फर्स्ट स्टेप भी कस्टमर को यूज करने नहीं आ रहा है. It doesn't matter whether you put that 16 hours or whether you put that 20 hours. Ultimately, whatever effort that you are putting and whether or not the customer was able to do what was outlined is going to matter, because that is what is going to make that customer come back to you, right? How can you do this? It's very important. I just don't want to talk about क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना है. It's also important how, because that's why you guys are here, right? Understand the problem space. The first and foremost important thing, अगर आपको अपने output में या outcome में को आपकी quality बढ़ानी है, what is the thing that you want to do? You want to understand the problem space. Spend higher time researching, right? Customer ने जो problem बताई है, sometimes there's a very big disconnect between what the customer. So let's be honest, a lot of times customers are not the best communicators. I'm sure all of you must have. किसी ने ऐसा experience किया है कि आपके customer को समझ में नहीं आ रहा क्या बोलना है? Is there anybody in the room? Yeah, there's so many people, right? It's very common. वो बोल रहा है मेरे को, maybe they want B and they are saying मेरे को A के बाद में जो होता है वो दे दो. So it's sometimes very hard to understand what the person on the, or maybe they're not that great at articulating, right? So it's okay if you want to take that little extra time, ask additional questions and understand exactly what is it that the person on the other side is saying their pain point is. हाँ ठीक है, you have lined up 50 processes that you want to get done or whatever, but उससे पहले ये तो समझ लो कि exactly उसके जीवन में problem क्या है. Right? It's almost like that कि आप argument में हो and you're really not listening to the person on the other side, you're thinking of the answers first. That's not how it should be. And then the next thing which kind of ties down to what I was just saying, ask why at each important milestone or request. आपके customer को moon चाहिए. In a very recent meeting with one of my, so as I moved into growth, I went into a sales meeting with one of our very big clients, and the most interesting thing that person said, okay, you should never say no to a customer. You should say something like, अगर आपको moon, if you want the moon, I'll bring the moon to you. But most probably the best moon for you is a new moon. Right? So what I mean to say by that is, do not necessarily always give in to अच्छा ये बोला है तो मतलब यही करना है, and try to understand कि क्यों मांग रहे हैं. Usually that Q is the one will unravel कि what is it that they really wanted in the first place, कि उसको A चाहिए था, B चाहिए था, क्या चाहिए था. So that getting your teams to understand how to ask great questions is also super important, right? Then the next crucial important thing that I had to unlearn is extreme compartmentalization versus ownership. This is a subset of what we were discussing earlier. When you have environments where you have really large organization and there are disconnected teams, most of the time there are disconnected teams, you'll realize that there are people who are hired just to get the teams connected. Jabki when you go in a startup environment, the way people would connect each other is, आओ please एक साथ सब एक room में बैठो and let's get shit done together, right? So the habit that larger teams builds into your mind is, okay, ये मेरी team है, this is just my set of team, and I will work with these set of people, and they are the ones that I will share or discuss responsibilities with. So ये raccoon के तरह किसी की हाल ना हो जाए, and the biggest not my job award goes to this raccoon. Like it's not the raccoon, actually it's the person who painted the road. The disclaimer, no raccoons were harmed in the making of this slide. Extreme compartmentalization versus ownership. What am I trying to unlearn? So basically I am trying to unlearn to think about only my department, like I mentioned earlier. मेरी टीम है, मेरी टीम क्या कर रही है, तुम भाड़ में जाओ, मुझे नहीं पता. It's not how it should be. It's what your entire function is doing at this moment. Take interest. When you are in places which are, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 employee, it is very hard to think कि बाकी सारे departments क्या कर रहे हैं. And sometimes it's necessary because it can get you lost. कि अगर आप सारे 2,000 employees क्या कर रहे हैं उसके बारे में सोचने चले जाओ तो it's difficult. But then when you are in small environments, it's a thing that you have to adopt, right? Incorporate cross-functional thinking. So if you are an individual, let's say for example, you are a developer, right? You might want to take interest in what is your customer success team doing. You might want to also take interest in what is your product team really talking about. बस handover हो गया, बात कर लिया, उसके बाद खत्म नहीं होता, right? And if you are a leader, you should be finding avenues where there are enough time where people are talking to each other. Different departments are talking to each other. How do you want to do this? Don't let your teams marry your PM. But होने वाली है. Get them to talk to customer facing stakeholders or customers, right? Your designers, your devs, just as I gave example right now, are they really talking to the right set of people? अगर किसी को ownership दिलवानी है, if I am an owner of a company, what's the first thing that I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about what are my customers doing, how are they feeling, and I would not shy away from, if I'm owning something, I would not shy away. Let's say, simplest example, I have a small restaurant or something, I would not shy away from going to their table and asking them, are you enjoying the food or not? Do you like the service or not? Similarly, we are talking about ownership over here, right? So similarly, the same vibe has to be imbibed by you also, or you have to encourage your teams also, that find some safe spaces to get your teams to talk to customer, right? Get them on calls directly with customers. See what they are hearing or how they are understanding. Sometimes that Chinese whisper, as in you transferring information between different set of people, it changes hand and it changes the tone that the message is getting conveyed in as well. So the impact usually is higher if मैंने किसी चीज़ को directly सुना. So find spaces to do that. The second thing that you can also do is leverage feedback in design or output, or empower fast track efforts for other team. What I mean by this is, let's say for example, your design team, right? Your design team spoke to customer and they got some feedback, and उन्होंने design की उस feedback को दिमाग में रखते हुए, right? This is an information that is available to you, that your designer is directly solving a problem with the customer. So how do you now translate this into the entire organization? For example, maybe find ways to put notes in that design, right? So that if somebody else is picking up, for let's say for example sales folks often pick up the design of the raw designs that are there or prototypes that are there and try to show to the customer. You putting in your customer context in there will make sure that the salesperson is also reading and repeating the same language. किसी इंसान को कुछ चीज़ अगर समझाना हो सबसे बेहतरीन तरीका वही हो कि you speak in their language or you speak in their tone, right? Let's say I have a certain way of speaking. Think about children, right? When you are talking to children, you usually, if you want to get to convince them to do something, you will always talk in the manner the child talks to you. Trust me, it works with adults also. You just don't know it yet. Okay. Then the next thing that I am learning, or I learned, was PT versus scalable revenue. When you are in service industry and आप कुछ accounts handle कर रहे हो, and you are giving the, I'm sorry, I got distracted with that for a minute. When you are in larger industry and when you are actually handling specialized account, let's say एक account आप खुद handle कर रहे हो and that's got like what, I don't know, $1 million revenue or something like that. That sort of customer comes to you and say मेरे को ये कल ही चाहिए, तुम करके दो, मैं तुमको ये लो एक और million. People are very highly likely in service industry है पैसा आ रहा है ले लो, ऐसी वाली feeling उनमें आ जाती है. But the minute you switch into digital products or the minute you switch into startups, right, you have to start thinking about whether or not this is going to keep coming. एक बार what, okay, let me ask a very simple math. Do you want 1 million एक बार में, or do you want to build something which will bring you most probably 10 million constantly in a year? The second option, right? As simple as that. But the way the pressure is built, or sometimes, and the way people are getting caught up with the the pizzazz की सामने एक बार में 1 million दिख रहा है, जैसा हो नहीं जाता, हाथ में बहुत सारे पैसे एक साथ आ गए, क्या करूँ समझ में नहीं आ रहा. So no, we don't want to do that. We want to enable our teams to start thinking about ki, whatever this request is at this moment, whoever is taking this request, is this really a one-time thing or is this going to keep bringing me money constantly? I would rather focus on the latter first. ये जैसा this guy तोंडे से धंधा करो तो बड़ा करो, otherwise let it be. So speedy versus scalable revenue. What do you want to unlearn? You need a minute? Okay, thanks. Speedy versus scalable revenue, what did I unlearn? I unlearned to zero in on features that will only provide fast one-time revenue. Sometimes it's very easy, right? Let's say you're not doing that great, or there's been a seasonal downtime and somebody suddenly offers this one-time thing. It's very easy to get caught up in that, but that's not what you want to encourage. Adopt prioritization towards features that have potential to provide recurring revenue, which is exactly what we talked about. Can anybody give me an example of something that would be one time versus something that would be a recurring revenue? किसी ने अपने organization में किया है ऐसा कुछ? No examples? Yeah? You wanna try?
Yeah. Like having a, for example, I belong to IT industry. You want to deliver a project one time, and on the other case, you want to deliver a project where you also offer maintenance services for 10 years, 20 years, something like that. So that's something which comes in as a recurring revenue, and that's something which large MNCs are doing and going to do in upcoming years.
Yeah, so I'll give you another example also. In Shipments, we are currently building Shipments CRM hub, right? So there were a couple of customers who a few days back they wanted to throw in a lot of they're like, we have been your customers for so long, here's take my take my money wala, take my money XYZ, this is my exact requirement. So our team literally did exactly that. They went back, the best of both worlds, okay? The smart thing that you can also think about is, how can I take the fund for that one time project but find a way कि ये मेरे लिए अलग से revenue recurring हो जाए. That's exactly what we did with Shipments CRM hub. We told the customer that, okay sir, you want this right now, we'll do it as a project for you, but we knew at the back of our minds that we would be able to sell this to other customers also. How do you want to do this? And this is not something that only somebody at senior leadership will think. It starts from the ground level. If you are a developer, you can start that question at your stage also. If you are a designer, you can start that question at your stage as well. Ask your bosses, and if you are a senior leadership or something, you will have even more power to ask this sort of question. Evaluate if the feature that you are prioritizing will help only a niche or customer or a wider group. आप project भी pick up कर रहे हो, try to find a space to negotiate in between that okay, these parts of the project I feel I will be able to take ahead further, but these parts I feel like नहीं लग रहा मुझे कि आपके अलावा और कोई use करेगा. Obviously you don't say that directly to the customer, but you say, like I said, that new moon wala, I will get the moon for you, but new moon is better for you. Either case, does this align with the direction of the goal? The next question that you want to ask is, let's say you are, I don't know, shoemaking business. Your customer says, you know what, I am taking your shoe for my wedding, but now I want belts also to match with that shoe or something. Great, it's an old customer. For the entire wedding they have taken everything, but do you really want to be the company that's building belts as well, or do you want to make your brand only in shoes? So these are kind of the questions that you want to ask yourself, or these are the questions that you also want to ask your senior leadership. Is this something that's aligning with what we want to become as a company or not? Ask if the revenue can become recurring, which is what we discussed earlier. Okay. Now on to the green flags, right? What are the green flags mean? By green flags I mean, in service, there are a lot of things that you get ingrained. With the 8 years of experience, there's a lot of things जो आप में ऐसा है कि you cannot unsee. Like you unlearn, but you cannot unsee. And then those particular things, luckily, are something that startup folks often end up missing out, right? So what's the first thing that you can bring in if you are coming from services? Functional scalability, right? What do you mean by fly to Hogwarts? Why can't you just email him the thing? So what I mean to say is, startup में बहुत सारी चीजें, because it's happening in small teams, people usually don't think about इसको लिख लेते हैं या let's make a let's make a standard out of this or something like that. But then the thing is, today you are thinking about 5 people. Your goal is growing to 25 people, or your goal is growing to 100 people. Are you really making sure that the person that's coming after you, it's going to be easy for them to get to that stage? Think about it this way. अगर आप सच में अच्छा करने लगते हो, you will start growing. Growing means you will get more people. It means you will also have to teach them. What do you want to do? Do you want to spend time teaching them, or do you want to make sure that the teaching time is cut down so that that person can actually start becoming useful sooner? So try to document, templatize and automate as much as possible, right at the beginning. Then the next thing that I absolutely could not unsee. Do you guys, I don't know, service वाले समझेंगे यहाँ पे, हर चीज में किसी चीज का ग्राफ बन जाता है. Relatable?
Yes.
हर चीज में परसेंटेज होती है कोई ना कोई चीज की. We have succeeded by this much percentage. What I mean by that is, there's an ingrained thing in you to look at data sets. So the fun fact is, you can always take that any possible where in your life, right? So what can you do in case of this small startups? You can start using this to quantify your tangible or intangible experiences for your customer with the help of this data set, right? Proof is always important, right? आप अच्छा कर रहे हो, सिर्फ आपके बोलने से मतलब नहीं पड़ता. The minute you back it up, सर्विस वाले ये सबसे अच्छा करते हैं, because उनका प्रोडक्ट नहीं होता, प्रूफ तो दिखाना रहेगा कैसे ना कैसे करके. That's why they are so great at graphs कि this is the damn proof. Think of it this way, मेरे पास में अगर प्रोडक्ट है, प्रोडक्ट के साथ में मेरे पास प्रूफ भी है कि प्रोडक्ट काम कर रहा है. So I want to give an example of something that I am currently using. So in the last slide we talked about templatization and automation. So something for Tango is something that we are using. Tango is a tool that basically, if you, let's say I'm using a tool at this moment or anything at this moment, and I switch on Tango, it's almost like Loom, that it will record your screen of what process you're doing, what is it that you're carrying out, but the only difference is it will automatically write the steps for you. So think of it this way, आप किसी को बिठा के बाजू में 10 मिनट spend करोगे to teach Tango. If you run it once, Tango can document it and send, that can be reused multiple times. So rather than you writing 100 steps, you do one Tango and it takes care of your step-by-step writing. So one thing that Tango did, I noticed, was when I initially started using it, it sent me these kind of emails. So why do I want to use this as an example? Do you see at the bottom there's this one favorite thing that I really liked, and we picked this up from here, are saved from creating tangos and avoiding interruptions. Have you ever thought that कोई अपना, I mean, let's say you are today doing something. Do you ever calculate in a day कि interruption कितना हो रहा है? Do you ever calculate in a day कि कितने बार किसने परेशान किया? But Tango thought of that. Basically, it is calculating कितना hour मैंने Tango use किया है, but the way it is written is कि इतने बार आपने लोगों ने आपको परेशान नहीं किया है. Instantly a hook got created in my customer mind, in this case my mind. Oh shit, 15 घंटे मेरे productive थे ज़्यादा. So that's the kind of thing that thinking of data set and proof building you can do with the help of your data set experiences. Keep thinking about such avenues when you are also moving into small teams. This is the most important thing that I had brought with me. That is, don't predefine your customers' experiences, right? It is always said that customer is always right. We know somewhere downline that वो उतना भी सच नहीं है. But do we want to make that person feel that? Absolutely not. The problem is, and why are we talking about this right now, is because in product, what happens is, जब आपने खुद से कुछ बनाया हो, I think I'll give a more simpler example. I love to cook sometimes. मैंने कुछ आज बनाया and किसी को खिलाया. And somebody, you know, I'll expect that they be honest. ऐसे मुंह पे तो मैं बोलूँगी please be honest. But ऐसे किसी ने मुझे बोल दिया नमक कम हो गया, मेरे को अचानक से I will be like, अच्छा नहीं, वो थोड़ा ज़्यादा गर्मी हो गई थी किचन में, या फिर कुछ तो हो रहा था, मैं भूल गई नमक डालना. So it is ingrained in me that if I'm making something myself, I will be cutthroat defensive about it. So no matter how polished you become, if you are somebody that's only used to building things from scratch right from the beginning, it is very hard to not want to protect it. Of course, आपने इतने घंटे दी, इतनी मेहनत की, अचानक से मुंह पे किसी को बनाना भी नहीं आता, उसने बोल दिया क्या बनाया तूने? You will not like it. But that's something that service industry teaches you. Keep aside that prejudice for one moment, keep aside that need to punch somebody in the face for one moment, and do not think of answering right away. Just listen to what the person in front of you is saying. भूल जाओ कि तुमने बनाई है 2 मिनट के लिए उसको. When you step into that zone, right, that you forget for a minute you have made it and you are just listening to the customer like a therapist, it does wonders. You actually learn to listen to what the person on the other side is trying to tell you, right? So don't predefine customers' experiences. Don't try to teach people. Of course, you have experienced designers. Of course, you have researchers. Your product is meant to function a certain way, but you are not supposed to put that down that person's throat. You are supposed to observe whether or not that's actually doing what it's supposed to do. So become an observer as well. Yeah. With that, I had a lot of other things, but with that, I think I'll wrap up because सबको भूख लग रही है, चेहरा देख के लग रहा है. So remember at the beginning, Kangana was like, क्या हो गया जीवन में? After I unlearned that, this is what I feel. So I'm going to pause over here and take